Good evening, ladies, and welcome to today's session. This is the third session for the year. My name is Muraro Nemataeni. I'm going to be your facilitator for this evening. And the book that we are focusing on this month is Can You Be Trusted with Pain by Nomcebo Ngema. So I'm going to introduce the Echo Model, an empowered woman, and then we'll do the introductions where you'll get an opportunity to introduce yourself. So as empowered women, our aim is to empower, educate, and celebrate women. So this first part that we start with is under the aspect of celebrate. So if there is any good news that you'd like to share with us as you introduce yourself, feel free to share on this session. And if you just want to do the 30 seconds speech, tell us about what you do, where you're based, you're most welcome to do this at this point so that other people can get to know who you are, where you're based, what you do, and then connect with you accordingly. Thereafter, we will give time to Nomcebo to take us through the book itself. Can you be trusted with pain? Maybe a journey of writing the book or any specific theme on the book that you would like us to focus on or share about. And thereafter, we'll get to Buthi, who will take us through the case presentation, and then we'll all get into a conversation with the author. After that, we'll do a wrap up and provide with feedback. So on to it. So for your information, we're recording this session and then you'll be able to view the session on our YouTube channel. So after the session, we will upload it for those that are not able to be part of tonight's session. So by participating in the session, you're consenting to be recorded. And please ensure that confidentiality is maintained when you share stories or when you engage with others, because this will be shared on a public platform. And this is our agenda for tonight. We've already gone through it. So as empowered women, we've partnered with Project Echo, and we use their Echo model, which assists us to plan the sessions and load the sessions beforehand into their system. So we're using technology to leverage on scarce resources, share best practices, case-based learning, and we're able to monitor outcomes through this web-based database. So the Echo model is mostly used in the health space, and we're the first to launch in South Africa in terms of Echo in education. So this is how this has helped us. So this is the third session this year, so session number 15 on iEcho platform. As Empowered Women, we're a registered nonprofit organization working for the rights and empowerment of women and children. And our aim is to empower, educate, and celebrate women. We do this through a book club where we read one book a month and then we review the last Sunday of the month. And we also have Empowered Kids Reading Club where we read with children every Saturday. And then we've got presence in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Lesotho, and also in other countries. I know we've got members in Namibia, in Uganda, in Italy. So this is our space so that we can come together and network and connect with one another. And we've got over 470 women on the WhatsApp group, and also have provincial groups and then country groups for people to be able to engage and connect in a provincial level. And we're a member of LITASA, which is the Literacy Association of South Africa, and also a member of the Limpopo United Business Forum. I had some good news with regards to LITASA and what our members are doing and getting involved. Hopefully, when the ladies introduce themselves, they will also share on that. So back to introductions. I will introduce myself and then I will hand over to you ladies to also introduce yourselves. As I've indicated before, I'm Muraro Nemataeni. I'm based in Thohoyandou in Limpopo. I'm the founder and president of Empowered Women, and also the founder and CEO of EmpowerX Advisory Services. With Empowered Women, it's a community of women that are focused on using literacy for their own personal development, And then with ImPower'd, I teach financial literacy. So that is me. I will hand over to you ladies to introduce yourselves. You're most welcome to just unmute and do the introductions. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies. It's Eunice Chabalala here. I am a business analyst by profession, and I'm also consulting on the side as a business analyst. I offer a wide range of services that extend outside business analysis, specifically with regards to tech. And I do this with SMMEs and sometimes get subcontracted by corporate spaces and some government institutions. In Clayville, and I'm actually very happy to be here today to be reviewing this book with you. Thank you so much. Oh, and I'm graduating on the 3rd of April. Thank you.
Hi, ladies. It's Busisiwe Ngema. I'm in Pretoria, but we'll be moving to East Rand from April, so I'm going back to my roots. I'm an author, and during this week, I was co-opted to Litasa Exco as their treasurer. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies. My name is Refilwe Mongale. I am currently based in Lephalale in Limpopo, originally from Taung. I am an author of the book, The Fear of Failure, The Audacity to Dare Do It Afraid, which we will be reviewing next month. And I am also an HR professional. I also have a coaching services company, which are still starting up. My passion is to develop the young ones, the youth, and the women, particularly in the rural places like Lephalale and Taung, where I come from. I am looking forward to sharing this day with you. My good news for this year is that I got accepted for MBA, so I'm busy with my MBA this year and next year. Thank you.
Ladies, you're
Good
most
evening,
welcome to
ladies.
unmute. Okay, go for it.
Good evening, ladies. My name is Zoliswa Lufele. I'm currently based in Joburg. I'm a consultant. I'm in the finance space. I'm also a board member for Dikeledi Thokozile Foundation, where we work mainly with girls. And I was graduating on the 1st of March. So that's for me the highlight for this season. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies. My name is Gail Posa, currently based in Limpopo. I started the reading club in January 2024 this year, where we read with children every Saturday. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies. I am Nokwanda Ngombane. I am based in the rural village in the Eastern Cape, in a town called Umbu. I am a coach, and I'm interested in working with people who are stuck in life People just want to be happy, just to live a joyous life, want to find themselves in a very happy place. I have finished writing my book and it's on publication right now. It's selling, and I'm pleased to join you. This is my first time and I'm joining you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies, for the introductions. We're going to move over now to the next session for tonight, where we will hand over to you, Nomcebo Ngema, to take us through your journey of writing the book or anything that you have prepared in this regard. If you would like to share the slides, you can let me know, or if you've got a presentation prepared, and then I will stop sharing. If not, we can just leave the slide on.
Good evening, ladies. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Nomcebo Ngema, the author of this particular book. I had a great plan of using my laptop, but it will not connect tonight. I don't know why, but we shall do this regardless. So my good news for this year, the highlights, one of them being tonight, the fact that we have all read Can You Be Trusted with Pain. And the second one is I'll be launching a book for the first time on the 6th of April at Zara Book in Midrand. So I'm very excited about that. So the two questions I'm always asked, let me answer them now before we start. Everyone always asks, Kate's story, is it your story? No, it's not my story. It is a character that I've created called Kate. And at the time, I've been asked to just talk about the journey of writing this book. At the time, and the reason I've written the book is because I read up a lot about sexual abuse amongst very young kids, amongst women. There were a lot of rapes that were happening. And I started researching the problem with the aim of taking this to the movies. I am an author and filmmaker. So my hope at the time was to write a script about this, but making a film is very expensive. So once I get at the information, I decided on a book because it was really a story that I wanted to tell, the story of a girl who could do nothing about her situation, who does not have a memory, but who has the effects of what happened to her. So Kate is a young lady who is thriving in the corporate world and gets frustrated by life and has to deal with the past, as you've read. And then the second question is the antagonist real? That's the question I often get asked. No, he's not. For me, I needed to make him faceless, nameless, and all of that, because often in life we deal with antagonists, people who hurt us and never say sorry, people who hurt us and never see anything wrong with what they did. So for me, it was important for him to not have a face, because it was a confrontation that she needed to have without knowing who he is. Because I'm sure most of you have realized that not everyone who did something to you will acknowledge what they did, but it affects you. And as someone said, your healing is your responsibility. So in her healing journey, she needed to go through that. So I know a lot of people, the feedback I've had from the book has been that one person told me I couldn't finish it. I had to put it aside and all of that. And I said to her, the thing about what she went through is I needed to go through that world. So some people have asked me, how did it feel to go through writing about her journey? And I think I felt most of what people felt, because you have to get in there, you have to get into her brain, you have to get in her head, and you have to go through the pain. And the reason I've called it Can You Be Trusted with Pain is that pain doesn't ask for permission. Pain doesn't knock at your door and decide at 6 o'clock tonight, I'm gonna visit you. Pain just is a part of your journey. So I will stop there for now because I'm very cognizant of time, and I think I love interacting when I speak. So I think that's the part that I will enjoy. Thank you, ladies.
I'm not sure if our president is still with us or whether I should now continue.
You can continue. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, again. So I will just briefly touch on the book. I think as somebody who reads a lot of fictional novels, this one felt as Miss Ngema or Mrs. Ngema, as Nomcebo put it just now, it felt real. You know, it felt like you were going through the pain and the process with Kate. And the way it's not a kind of book you read and you put aside. You need to read and go back again and just check and refer again. The main character, which is Kate Malinga, has a lot of suicidal thoughts. So initially, you're not sure what's happening with her. You think maybe it's based on her weight, because she mentions herself that she binges a lot. So you're thinking that maybe she doesn't like the way she looks. But then as the book continues, you learn that she was actually molested as a 3-month-old baby up until 2 years. The question that comes to mind is to say, but where were her parents when this was happening by this male relative? And then she explained that her dad was involved in the car accident. So the mother spent a lot of time with the dad in hospital, leaving her in the hands of this molester. Now, this raises questions as well to say, what kind of parenting or support was around her mother, where an infant child will be left in the hands of this person who will molest a child? And we know that this is not something new. If you remember Baby Tepang, I mean, I think that was the first time we even learned that men could do that to an innocent child, because we always associate this savagery that they'll visit to teenagers and young ladies. And well, now we know that they even do it to even older women. But when we first read about Baby Tsepang, I think she was 9 months old. It was shocking. But now we realize that this is prevalent. So what was done to Kate? It left her devastated and traumatized. And initially, because she was still a toddler, she didn't know what had happened to her, but she had these memories or flashbacks to say something had happened to her, but she could not put a face to it. And it just left her in this position where she then drowned in herself in eating or binging, as she put it, to the point where we find there's self-hate. There's also issues of low self-esteem, because she was unhealed. So she healed herself through eating. And when you look at life, you'll find that most of us actually have addiction of some sort when we go through traumas or challenges. Mine, I realized, was shopping when I was still gainfully employed. So each time I had a challenge or a trauma happening, I'll go shopping. That was my way of feeling myself. But when you look at it, that on its own was part of them. The dealing with traumas that we find, and she finds herself being weightless and wondering why she can't also keep friends and why she can't relate to her siblings and her mother. Her mother later dies, but in the process, we found that her mother remarried because the father died when she was about 4 years old. So the mother remarried, and she was married to a guy who was very abusive, but only when he was drunk. When he was drunk, in his sober state, she mentioned that he was loving, and she could not also form any loving relationship with any guy because of the traumas that were visited upon her. So she didn't trust any male figure until she meets Luande CBC towards the end, who saw beyond her pain and was very patient with her and was able to make her visit then a psychologist who tapped into her inner that child who was hurt and started dealing with pain that she went through. So one thing that we learn is that mental health and depression, these are real issues, and we need to be aware of the triggers, and those all of us that then live with people who are going through this, we need to also be able to identify and be able to assist them, because at the end of the day, you find somebody, I mean, one of the things they tell that the person would not want to do anything, they just feel listless. All they want to do is sleep, for instance, and it'll be like, oh, that one is lazy. And when people come, it's like, oh, Ruby, they're happy, you know, but at times a person could be crying for attention. So they end up killing themselves, and you only discover later, maybe when you find their journal, that this person was traumatized and was going through a lot, but you were not there to support them, or didn't have the tools to identify that they were going through a process. So that the book then it goes into spirituality as well, because she questions, and I think most of us do this. Even when we lose a loved one, we question, why us? Why me, God? Why did you allow this to happen to me? You know, and then at the end, though, she also answers herself to say, it's individuals, it's not God himself that would have done that, because God is loving. So as I wrap up, I just wanted then to have an engagement with the author, Nomcebo, and then we'll open it up. My first question to you, Nomcebo, is, when did your writing journey begin?
Okay, my writing journey, I've always been a writer. I was a journal writer. I kept a journal from a very young age. My parents were both teachers, so there was always a pen and a book around. So whenever I found it, I would just start writing any thoughts that came to mind. I was also I read a lot as a kid, so I think I reflected a lot, and that's why I had always had something to write. But officially, I started publishing my first book in 2015, which is called God's Unconditional Love. So that's where the journey, before that I had written films. I don't know if you know films like The Calling and Honest Living. There's a couple of films that I did. So
Okay.
I had written those films. I had written Mr. Right, Night. There's a couple of them, and I produced them. But at some point, I knew that I've always wanted to write a book. So with the books, officially, it was published in 2015.
No, that's good to know. And one thing that I picked up, I mean, reading this, I mean, this was my first reading of any of your writings. Would you say that your themes are Bible conscious or spiritual driven? And is this guided by your lifestyle as well or background?
most of my books are spiritually Christian driven. I mean, I have books called Nameless Women in the Bible, the one I'm launching on the 6th, which is the Prayer Kist. So my writing goes towards a Christian view because that's who I am. I cannot separate my writing from being a Christian because that's basically the person that I am.
Okay, so that's how you were brought up.
Yes, definitely. I grew up in a home that is Christian. I went to a Christian school, I think between standard 6 and 7. I went to a Christian school. So I'm always conscious of Christian values. And I'm also, I think I reflect a lot because of the view that I hold, which is being a Christian.
Okay. I think you mentioned this slightly when we were talking about the questions that people ask, whether this is a true story or not. So I just want to take it further and say, how do you separate your personal life from the characters, especially in this particular book? Because when you started in the beginning, you mentioned a guy, well, kind of attacking you, go game in a Eastgate mall. So how do you separate yourself from the characters when you're writing?
I think I think you would relate to this as an author as well. With every book or every piece of writing that you do, there's a part of you that you write about. For instance, her dad being in the hospital, my dad was physically disabled. He was on a wheelchair when I was 3 months old. I think that's why I chose Kate being 3 months when she was molested, because there was that kind of chaos. My dad had an
Something you
accident.
could relate to. Yeah.
So I could relate to that part, even though it was imagined for me, because I can't remember anything for me. So, except what my siblings tell me. So I wanted to relate that as a true part of her. But within that chaos, I know that you will always take parts of yourself, and you will always, it will always be a part of the book. There are things that are true, and then there are things you create and imagine. See, okay, my mom was in the hospital, there were people who were helping out, so what happened to her? So that is the extent that I had with the character. So that's the separation, because when I read about pain, initially I had written the book in third person, and then someone came in and robbed me, and the laptop was gone. I had to rewrite the story. And then as I was writing, it just felt like when it's that person, it doesn't really make sense. So I started writing it in first person. And I think people totally relate to that more than
I think it was a divine intervention, I guess, because when you read it, it's you going through the process. And which brings me to the next question to say, how did you, what were the parts in the book that you find the most difficult to write, if there were any?
This book was very difficult to write, just overall. The subject itself was very scary for me, because it's, when you talk about abuse, really, even as an adult, when you talk about rape in general, it's a scary part that we all fear as women, especially living in a country like South Africa. But when you have someone within the home who does something like this, that was the scary moment, because I had to confront the monster and present him as someone who didn't matter to her because she didn't know who he is. So for me, it was the deepness of the character. It was relating to someone who you need to forgive, because Kate had to go through a journey of forgiving him, even though she didn't know. I mean, there's a chapter where I write about the enemy within, and that's the chapter that I hope that as readers you are able to detect in you, that there's always that one thing that you don't want as part of your life, but you keep doing it because you are a human being. and you totally know. So I wanted to humanize them in that sense. But society says it's evil. And we all have that part where we're saying this part is evil and we know we must stop. But in saying we must stop, we can't stop ourselves. So that's what I wanted to reflect within that chapter. So I wanted my antagonist to be relatable as well. And that's why I wrote that chapter.
Yeah, because I mean, it's quite a heavy book, to be honest. You feel like she cannot get a break when she's now the MD, but because she has not dealt with the traumas of her childhood, as the MD, she's functioning, but barely functioning, and losing her job, losing her house, losing her car, having to go back to living with their aunt, who didn't really like her much. They only liked her when she could provide something, but now that she's coming as kind of like a pauper, then they treat her like, she's nothing in the family. They even hide food. She knows that people were eating, but there's no food there because she's no longer a provider. And I think most people can relate to that in life there are people who just like you when you can do something for them or provide something for them, but as soon as you lose that, then Bakalabas cleaner, they clean themselves out. The ones who are just there to use you, and they move forward. They move to another person to leech on. So it deals or dealt with those heavy topics that we never talk about, but that happens in our society.
I think for me, it was deliberate to have her break down in every aspect, because often you can't build until you have broken everything. Yes, I know that you'll have parts of you, but when you yourself, because it's really a book about esteeming yourself beyond what you have, and trying and dealing with the issues that unless you deal with them, you don't feel like you. So it's that breaking down of everything only to recreate yourself again. And she had to lose everything in order to realize that she's human. She had to go through a journey that often we don't want to go through in order to get back to just realizing that we matter and are worthy.
Yeah. No, thank you for this writing. I'm going to open it up now and not monopolize you. So, ladies, the floor is all yours, or the platform is all yours. Any takers?
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
So like it was said, yeah, this is a very difficult book to read because most of the things that are in here are fairly relatable. I think nearly every last one of us had that particular part of Kate's experiences that they related to highly, that they most probably personally have experienced, right? So I am very curious as to how you went about this. I understand the infant stages, her experiencing molestation from 3 months to 2 years of age. But the build-up of the character overall up until she gets into corporate, her losing her job, losing nearly about everything, her questioning God. I am so very curious. Are there perhaps sources that you were using, maybe, for instance, books, or maybe people that you found that you maybe have close to you that maybe shared those kind of experiences? Because it is highly relatable. It's almost as though it's a true story of someone else's experience. And I know for a fact that there's most probably someone else who's experienced that. In fact, most people have experienced that, because I think domestic violence is a much more common that we actually want to admit or even like it. So really, I just want to understand, is it like a first-hand experience from the other person, or maybe there were perhaps sources that we were using? I understand you mentioned that it was your creative imagination that played a huge role, but was it inspired by specific sources or specific people that you may have experienced personally?
Okay, that's a layered question for me. So it was a lot of research that I did on the subject. I went about researching how how trauma works. I had to become a psychologist of sorts. I researched on children and trauma. I researched about rape. I researched about different things. And also one of the things I do is I'm the founder of an organization called the Keledi Thokozile Foundation. And we often do classes with young teenagers to just talk about different issues that affect, because when we started the organization, it was taking girls who dropped out back to school. And then we had a program called Young Women You Are Worthy. And we talk about everything, because we realize that the reason girls drop out of school, the reason girls get into a lot of trouble is because of the self-esteem issues. So we often talk about different issues with the teenagers that I work with. So it's not particularly one story, it's different stories that I had to use in order to get a sense of what happens. I mean, I've had a girl who was pregnant and lost the baby at the age of 14. I've had girls who, it's so many experiences that I often get home and think, wow, this happens in the real world. So for me, it was talking to those girls. It's topics that as women we talk about, women who are battered. I've always wondered, would say, why don't you leave? And then I spoke to some women who are battered, and they told me that it's not as simple as that. It's the mentality that the rapist gives you. It's the thinking that you can't survive in the world without them. It's all of that. And for me, Kate is a layer of all of these things that I've researched. I've spoken to psychologists who've counseled these people who are raped, who are molested, about the process of healing. And in creating Kate's character, there were all of those elements. And I think that's why she's believable, because she doesn't experience things that a lot of girls don't experience. So I believe that in the research that I did for this book, and I have a crazy mind that processes things in a crazy way. So in just staying with her and allowing her, when I write, especially when I write for TV, I let the character lead me, because often we have to ask Uguti, what's the worst that could happen to this character? And often it's not comfortable going to where she is going or what she is experiencing. But in order to make her real, she has to go through that. So you have to go through that as a writer. So while the experiences were at the back of my mind, I believe that even the research played a role in how she was brought to life. And when she lost everything, she really had to deal with what is inside her. And I think that's why she is who she is. I hope I've answered your question.
Absolutely, you have, and it's very interesting how you went about it. Thank you so much. I think I also have one last question. You mentioned that writing this book was I don't know, a bit difficult or scary for you, because you just did mention right now that you let the character lead you, right? So I'm assuming there are moments where you might find yourself writing and have to stop, I think, to collect yourself and come back to writing. So how do you rise above those conflicting moments to get back into that creative imagination, continue writing?
You are absolutely right. There are dark moments where I went to, and I couldn't believe I was there. I would have to stop. And there were moments where I had to step outside because it was too dark in the house. It was too quiet. It was too, so for me, it's basically doing other things. I had to start at different books that is much lighter in order to finish the story. I started a book called The Nameless Women in the Bible because I could focus on the Bible, and though they had their own stories, the women that existed. And then I would keep going back to the book because she needed to come out to Kate and she needed to come out of me. So you often need to, what I often do when I go into dark moments is watch a movie. I'll watch a comedy in between, especially, or take a few days off her and go and do something else. And I'm always amazed at how the readers of the book would always tell me that actually I needed to put it down and take a few days away. And that's exactly been my experience when I was writing it, that I needed to go into a quiet place within and write about her and then move away from her completely in order to get back to her and make her real.
Thank you so much. Are there any other comments? I just wanted to go back to the issue of the molestation. I mean, from 3 months up until 2 years without anyone discovering it. And my question to myself, though not so much to you, but you can respond to it if you can, is because I remember when my daughter was born, I mean, I wanted to be hands-on and bath her myself, make sure that I put her to bed. Even if I would come back late at night, I'll pick her from my mother's house and make sure that I put her to bed. I wake up in the morning and look after her, and that the molestation could go for so long without anyone discovering. And from the reading of the book, you get a sense that the mother died without knowing that her daughter had been molested as a toddler for that kind of a period. And it raised a question to say, was the attention diverted that much to the father, or was it the trust the mother had on the molester, who probably wouldn't have been a very close relative of hers that she trusted, that she will leave this child for a year and 9 months with this person who was inflicting so much pain on the child, and then will bath them and, you know, clothe them and put them there, making sure that no one discovers. And I suppose the child was not even breastfeeding during that period, because they knew she said she developed fits, but no one actually, maybe it's the time when this incident happened, that no one actually thought that there might be a bigger issue in her life. That aspect sat with me for a long time, to say what kind of parenting really was involved here, where a child can be molested for this long, especially a toddler, without anyone else being aware. That part also talks to say, when we're dealing with our own kids, we need to be even more vigilant to stop something like this happening, or our role.
Okay, I think you are bringing up a very important question that I had to question after I'd written the book, because I know I started finding out about the damage that actually happens when a child is molested. But I think one of the things I do mention in the book is that he would really take care of her physically, and no one would suspect it. I didn't want to get into the depth of what was being damaged. All I said about that part, and now I reflect and think maybe I should have done it differently. But what I wanted was the emotional part of it. I didn't want to get into the physical part of it, I think, as I wrote it. So I know that that's a flaw for the book, but it's also something that I because when we meet her, she's basically dealing with the emotional damage that it did to her, and she has to recover from that. But it's something that if I were writing it now, I would have dealt with differently, I think.
Yeah, I think maybe not so much to say a flaw, but I think it also makes us, let me say, as parents, to say, you may be going through stuff like the mother had to take care of the father, but don't, it should not be to the extent where you neglect your kids because you don't know I mean, there are people who are trusted, but still the ultimate responsibility lies with you. So not without necessarily saying there's a flaw in the book, a flaw in the book, but to say as parents, this also raises our alertness to say, who are you leaving your kids with and what are they doing to them? Because it might not show, and the scars will show later in many ways. Like Oprah will tell you that, and Ian Van Zandt, that the way they then showed it was through going around and sleeping around because no one really knew what had been done to them as kids. So I think the book actually does make us to be more aware and alert to say, don't neglect your parental duties, whatever is happening in your life, still be involved and responsible for your child.
Thanks for that.
Any other input, ladies? President, you are quiet today. Okay, I'm not sure whether maybe she's having challenges. One thing that also Nomcebo that came out for me is that during lockdown, I remembered an incident, and which is why I was touching on this issue of the molestation of the child. We were staying with the
There's
male
also
relative.
a hand raised by Khotso.
Hi, Khotso. I didn't see the hand, sorry.
All right.
And
Okay.
Busisiwe as well.
All right. Good evening, ladies. My name is Khotso Motsoku, from Lephalale. As Nomcebo, I would like to ask a question. What advice would you give somebody who's in the process of helping a kid, a 5-year kid of such situation, due to the, how can I put this, due to the law? Because I'm in a situation where I've got a cousin, it's a cousin, this kid, a 5-year. So her mom, she was staying with the boyfriends, and then now the community just alert us that, or made us aware that the girl, the mom is no longer there, went to Pretoria, and then the kid is staying with 2 men, apparently two. It's gonna be a boyfriend and what's uncle, and the uncle, or ramkhulu or ramwan. So community said, okay, they called my mom, telling my mom that there's a kid who stays with the 2 men and she's 5 years. What advice will you give to me? Because I'm about to give up on this matter. Police told us that the mother of the kid, she's having the rights.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you are basically asking Uti, the problem is that she is staying with 2 male figures, and are they doing anything to her, or is it just the discomfort of her staying with 2 male figures?
Yeah, the discomfort And as in the community or the women in the community, Alechi knew that it's not, we are not used to that. But yeah, that's the situation. So I don't know whether should we give up. We call the social workers. They were supposed to go there. So yeah, it's a chaos. I don't know which steps to take, or should we just leave it like that?
Is any of the male figures the father or?
No, it's the boyfriends of the mother.
Oh,
Not
okay. It's not a biological father.
Yeah, it's not a biological father.
Okay. In an ideal world, and I think this is what Usispusi was alluding to earlier. In an ideal world, a father or a parental figure should be living with the child without us worrying about what if something happens. But unfortunately, we live in a society where we wonder what happens if there's just males that are taking care of a child. In an ideal world, a child is a child is a child, and we don't imagine an adult thinking about a child in a certain way. I do believe personally that if you have a discomfort about it, I don't know what happens in this case. If there's a granny, an aunt, or whoever is responsible, I would advise that you get them involved. But also, it's the social workers in an ideal world should be involved, because I think they would be able to interrogate the situation professionally, because ultimately it's about the safety of the child. So whether or not something has happened, that is part of their job, where they interrogate further. How did this child end up in this situation? And if there are people who they feel are safer, they will be able to assess the situation. So if you do have social worker or community members who could interrogate it further, that's the advice I would give.
Yeah, because also growing up, I mean, churches used to play a very big role in communities. I'm not sure how involved the church, especially in villages. I think they are still taking care of their own than in townships. So social workers and maybe the local churches, if there's no immediate family members that can intervene.
Absolutely. That would also be great.
Yeah. And then there's a comment from Eunice saying, very true, the book is highly relatable. And then another comment from Tseho. Where is it now? Well, she's saying the book ripped her apart and she's still getting herself together. I'm not sure if she wants to expand on that or she's happy just having written that. And then Eunice continues to say, same here, feels like a survival guide as well for either one of those experiences that Kate went through. Hope you are able to collect yourself fully soonest. I guess, yeah, she was responding to Tseko. We are at 7 o'clock. I'll hand over to the president if there is no other comments or questions, but I'd like to thank you so much, Nomcebo, for writing a book. I mean, literally, there were parts where I felt like, I really felt like you were, at some point I forgot that this is fiction. It felt like you were now, you had subsumed yourself into the Kate character, and that talks to your writing. I mean, that's powerful writing, because at some point I just forgot that this is just fiction. You know, you felt like Nomcebo has taken over the character, and it's her talking now, not just the character. So yeah, that was powerful. I saw something from Lebu.
If we can take that hand before we wrap up.
Sorry?
There's a hand from Bosisiwe. If we can take that hand and then after that we'll wrap up.
Did somebody get that? I'm sorry, I really I'm battling to hear.
Okay, hi. Okay, yes. Good evening, ladies. My name is Busisiwe Sibilwane. I'm from Pretoria. I just wanted to just two short comments on the book. I read the book, I think a couple of pages, and then I think it was a bit too emotional for me. I put it on the side for a day or two just to recollect myself and my thoughts and the fact that, this is a book, it felt as if I was reliving something which has never even happened to me. So I think I want to commend Mrs. Nomcebo for making the book so relatable, first of all. And I think it made me think at many levels, and it made me remember my own childhood. I remember I must have been about 5 or 6, and we would go and visit my aunt, Umamngane. And when Mamngane had to work over weekends, she would take us with emsebenzini, and we would go and sit like at the back room yasemsebenzini. And I always asked myself, I think I was too young that time to even understand, but as I got older, I asked myself, why is she not leaving us at home? Because I mean, she could leave us at home. Her husband was there. And when I asked her years later, when I was an adult myself, she says, I could not trust even my own husband with 3 young girls, and it made me question a lot of things as a person. But I think as I was reading this book, it made me understand that what she was doing was being protective, not necessarily that anything could have happened, which then raises a question to me to say, now I have a 10-year-old daughter, and it makes me think twice or even 3 times every time I have to leave her in the care of others. And I also want us to even take it further. I know we are quick to be putting on the microscope when it's males, but these things also happen with females. So I'm just cautioning all of us to say, the microscope that we put on should not be based on just gender, but all people that are strangers should have the same scrutiny. I think that's the point that I wanted to.
That's so
Thank you
very
for
true,
that.
Busisiwe. Yeah.
Thank you for that input. I also, when I wrote this book, I reflected on that. My mom took me everywhere with her. And often I realized that in comparison, I mean, Usisibusi talked about how sometimes we neglect our responsibility as parents because we assume that those who are around us have our best interest. And until something, it's unfortunate that you only know something is happening at a point of crisis. So my mom would go everywhere until I was much older, till I was a teenager. She took me everywhere. And we live in a society like that where if you can't protect them, who will? And we have to go through that, unfortunately. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, ladies. Yeah, it was a tough one to read and also to discuss, but I'm glad that we have learned much, and also the points that were raised around taking care of our young ones and people sharing their experiences themselves. So let's continue having that discussion, and then we will see if there are better ways to deal with people or strangers, and then share best practices going forward. So thank you, Busisiwe, for the case presentation and also for facilitating the discussion with our author. And thank you, ladies, for getting involved and sharing your experiences and the experience of the book. And to you,
You're
our
welcome.
author, Nomcebo Ngema, thank you so much for allowing us to read your book and also being part of this engagement as we discuss and review the book itself.
Yeah, there's just something I wanted to add before we close, Mulalo. You know, the way society has become so sick is that it may, because there are still like good people out there. Like when I went back to work after giving birth, I will leave my daughter with my mom and my brother. My brother will fetch her from crash, look after her, never did anything to her. But because the society is so sick, even those few good men that are out there, they get lost in the narrative because we would rather err on we rather caution and be rather be on alert than put ourselves out there and then put our kids at risk. That's a sad part of our reality.
Thank you for that contribution. As we wrap up this session, I would like to challenge each one of us to make it our responsibility, even if it's not your child, be on the lookout so that we can have a better society going forward. So there will be a link with feedback. So we'll share that also on the WhatsApp group so that you can share about your experience of the session. And if there's things that you would like us to improve on, you're most welcome to share your feedback. We'll look at it and then make the necessary adjustments accordingly. April book, we are reading Coach Refilwe Mongale's book, The Fear of Failure, The Audacity to Dare Do It Afraid. So she has shared that information about the book on the WhatsApp group. We'll just request her to share once again on the group so that you can start making orders for your books. It's always good to order as a group. I think the book is 300 Rand, including delivery, and then 200 Rand if you're excluding delivery. So if you're ordering as a province or as a region, then you can just pay 200 Rand and then share on the delivery cost. So yeah, all the best with that, and then let's support each other, and then we'll review the book on Sunday, 28 April 2024 at 6 p.m. And once again, thank you all for joining us on today's review session. You're most welcome to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. We are available as Empowered Woman Book Club, and the recording for this session will be shared on our YouTube channel. So as soon as it convenes, we will share it accordingly and share the link. Thank you and enjoy your evening.